So we were discussing the issue of qiyas or analogy, where you have a ruling from Sharia on certain thing, and you find a new situation. The original is called asl, then you've got a far'a, which is the new situation came up, and then you try to find out the similarity, and you then get the ruling of the first one, and you try to apply the same ruling, because the reason behind that prohibition or that ruling is common between the two. So the example commonly given is that of alcohol. So why alcohol is haram, not a juice of any sort? Juices you can have, alcohol you can't have. That's what's the difference. Difference is one clouds your conscience, one intoxicates you. So then you look at that as the reason for it being haram, and you apply it to any such thing which happens in future. So cocaine, for example, it does the same thing, the same rule, which is alcohol being haram due to intoxication. Anything else with intoxicating effect would be haram. This is how the qiyas work. Well, obviously, it's not that simple. I just made it simple, but it takes a lot of work, hard work. So there are different ways of looking at different types. So one way of looking at qiyas that you do from something which is superior. So the illah in fara is stronger than the asl. So something which is haram, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفْ. To your parents, don't even say uff. So uff means that, why? I mean, it is showing your disapproval or your angst, you're being a bit fed up with your mom and dad. So when they're elderly, do not say uff to them. Even that much is not allowed. So when you look at the far'a, which is the new situation, so you ask, can we then slap our parents, hit them, physically abuse them? So the illah, which is causing harm, causing hurt to parents, is found in saying uff, but it is even stronger in abusing them physically or verbally. So that is going to be, so illah is actually stronger in the far'a, in the new situation. So that's one way. And it could be equal in both asl and far'a. Example is, ill treatment to orphans is haram, whereas devouring their wealth is haram. They're both the same. They're both going to cause them physical or financial loss, and you're not allowed to do any of that. This is causing harm to them. So they're same. And then thirdly, it could be the opposite way. The illah is weaker in the far'a. So the exchange of wheat for wheat, as hadith says, is prohibited. And you can apply it to something which is not staple, something simpler than that. So wheat happens to be more valuable. You may have some simpler pulses, which you could apply the same rule, but that would be lesser with regards to the strength there. So it could happen. So that's one way that some imams would distinguish. Hanafis divide in qiyas jali and qiyas khafi, obvious or hidden analogy. Very clear cut, and sometimes you have to identify, if you really dissect deep to identify that. Now, I'm leaving that for advanced stuff, inshallah, when we go through, hopefully, if you've managed it all and you wanted to go on to the second level, which is usul al-shashi or some of the other usul al-fiqh text, inshallah, then we'll be able to understand what are the different levels. Anyway, certain people do not allow qiyas at all because of a quite common misunderstanding. Remember, qiyas, analogy, is not a source of religion, although we say it's a source of getting the evidence for Sharia. It actually is like a a secondary tool whereby you could take stuff out from the major three tools. Quran, Sunnah, and Ijma are like three big pots with the different types of food in them. And you can make different recipes, different dishes from them. So you take one from that, one from this, and one from the other one, and mixing it in different proportions, and it becomes a nice different food. So you've got a big spoon, taking something out from Quran, something out from Sunnah, sometimes only from these two, sometimes adding from Ijma, sometimes from those two, from only one. You make different dishes. So qiyas is actually just that big spoon that you use to take stuff out from these in different proportion, different quantities, different match and mixing, and then you get it clearly a new dish, but that is actually based on the original stuff. You have not created anything new. You just apportion them, put them in a different way. So not understanding that caused a lot of confusion. So they say you're going beyond your limit. Allah says in the Quran, "O you who believe, do not make unlawful the good thing which Allah has made lawful for you." So we're not saying that. We're just saying qiyas is the way of knowing the ruling from the fundamental sources. We just try find out what was the reason there, which we are going to apply to the new one. We're not coming up with any new ruling. We're just applying that ruling to the new situation. It does not change or give new ruling without any base. The base is there from Quran and Sunnah. Then they say, isn't Quran complete? Has it not got all the ruling? Allah says, we have neglected nothing in the book. So when Allah says, so who are you to say? Allah said, we revealed the book as an explanation of everything. And Allah said, this day I perfected you, your religion, and I completed my favor upon you. Since everything is complete, why do we need a new tool or new something to clarify? Again, Quran categorically says that, but what qiyas is, it does not provide a separate new ruling. It only identifies the reason behind the ruling. It only clarifies and extends the meaning based on the nas, based on the rule from Quran and Sunnah. It is no new rule. It is the understanding and trying to identify the reason behind the ruling and applying it. Quran rests on conjecture. Qiyas, they said, rest on conjecture. There's no way of knowing the illah for certain. So it doesn't matter. You do not need to know with absolute certainty that what was the actual illah. That is why there will be on certain situation very clear-cut qiyas. That's why Hanafi say it is qiyas jali. Everyone would understand the reason. For example, in alcohol, why is it prohibited? Is there any difference of opinion? Obviously not. Everyone knows that is the reason for not allowing it. Whereas certain situation, the illah might not be clear. And that is why you would find imams differing on arriving at the illah and hence applying it differently. And that's perfectly fine. And that is why the hadith would suggest that if you are qualified to do so, and you have done it, you exhausted and exertion, and you come up with some ruling, and that ruling happens to be correct ruling, you will get 2 rewards. Otherwise, you will get 1 reward. There's no blame. Obviously, if you're not qualified, then you shouldn't be doing that. Allah says, فَاعْتَبِرُوا يَا أُولِي الْأَبْصَارِ. So, ponder over. So, consideration in this context means attention to similitude and comparison between similar things. So, we have to try and figure out. For example, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam once mentioned that if you were to go to your wife for your needs, sexual need, you will be rewarded. And the companion, Ya Rasulullah, but that's our personal need. It's just our benefit. Why would we be rewarded for this? This is no ibadah. We're not doing anything for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the intention is not there. So he said, would it not be that if you were to go to someone who is not your wife, you'd be sinful? He said, yes, major sin. He said, going to the right path compared to the wrong. If you went to the wrong way, you'll be punished, you'll be sinful. Going to the right one, you should accumulate reward. So you've done the right thing. And that's why you'll be rewarded, because you stayed away from haram. Okay. So that's qiyas, isn't it? That's the way you look at things in understanding the reasons. And it's a form of ijtihad. Okay. Then they say, qiyas is prohibited in the Quran. Or you believe, do not press forward before Allah and His Messenger and fear Allah. لا تقدموا بين يدي الله ورسوله. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, ask me not about matters which I have not raised. Nations before you were faced with destruction because of excessive questioning and disputation with their prophets. When I command you to do something, do it to the extent that you can and avoid what I have forbidden. So they say, see, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are prohibiting us from doing qiyas. Again, except for Imam ibn Hazm, one of the Zahiri Imam from Zahiri sect. Dawud al-Zahiri created him. This is his student. He was the main man behind, a very knowledgeable person, but he was, quite Zahiri, like literalist. And other than him, no one understood from this ayah to mean qiyas, or to go, or this is talking about or against qiyas. He's the only one in the whole history of Muslim. And this hadith is about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Do not ask me, he said, because if you ask Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam any question, as Quran clarified it, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tas'alu an ashya'a in tubda lakum tasukkum. And again, when tas'alu hina yunazzalu al-Quran tubda lakum, whenever you would ask something while revelation is continuing, you would be made aware of it. And there's a hadith that if you're asking question, cause something to be made obligatory for people, and thereby you're causing them, stress by making more things prohibited or extra burden of obligation, then that is the worst of the person, worst of the people whose questioning goes more obligatory injunctions in Sharia. So we shouldn't be asking question. We shouldn't be asking Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Islam. That was the time when revelation would come. If we asked so many questions, so Sahaba wouldn't ask many. We can delve into these matters provided we are qualified enough. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's prohibition was specific to his personal being, not the imams or the scholars. That's why I didn't understand. Likewise, Banu Israel, they did not want to ask the question for clarification. They were asking question to just mock Sharia. They were, see when they say, when Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam said, Inna Allah ya'murukum an tadhbahu baqara, Allah commanded you to slaughter a cow. They should have just taken a cow and slaughtered it. They started questioning, first, are you making mockery? Why are you asking us to do that? Don't you know that we love cows? Because they asked for a calf to be made for them from gold so that they could worship him as other people do. So this is their nature. And then they kept asking questions about the specifications of this particular cow till it became like so clearly, distinguishedly mentioned to them that they had no choice but to go for it. And Allah says, فَذَبَحُوهَا وَمَا كَادُوا يَفْعَلُونَ. They were very near not doing it. They did not want to do what they had to do because they kept asking, and Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, through his compassion and mercy, kept asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala their questions and getting response from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they did not have intention of acting. They act on those injunctions. Their questioning were to shy away from the obligation, staying away from the, trying to corner the Prophet in such a way that we would not need to do those obligatory stuff. So when the Mujtahid Imams ask these questions, when they go into this, inquisitive journey, they're only trying to understand the intent of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and applying it. They're not doing it for their personal sake or, trying to shy away from. And that is why you would see they're very strict with regards to their practices. They're so pious and they will spend hours in tahajjud. The connection with Allah and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is exemplary. So to compare them with Jewish people who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Quran mentioned very clearly that they mocked the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They did not intend. Now, what about qiyas and penalties? Majority would say that you can apply qiyas and penalties as well. Hanafis allow that. They say, yes, it's okay. But the ta'zir punishment. So the penalties or the punishments which are not hudud punishment. Hanafi say in hudud you cannot apply qiyas. Other than hudud and kaffarat, general punishments, you can apply qiyas. Okay, so for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned about, the theft, a specific punishment, adultery, specific punishment, fornication, a specific punishment, likewise, killing someone innocent person, a specific punishment, slandering someone. So they have got a specific punishment. You cannot apply that to any other punishment. There has to be no qiyas in these matters, according to Hanafi, in hudud and in kafarat. But other than that, it's okay. So the conclusion is, qiyas is a recognized source of Sharia, except that it is not the original source. It is only developed based on the main sources, which is Quran and Sunnah. And ijma is actually understanding those two together by consensus. And qiyas only takes out ruling from these three and coming up with a new solution for the situation that has just occurred now. Only Mujtahid can do qiyas, not us. It would give you speculative reasoning. It would not give you categorical, definitive ruling. And scholars may have differences. Some would say that's the qiyas. Some would say no, the qiyas is actually this. It is binding on the muqallid. So if you're Hanafi, you have to stick with Hanafi ruling and their qiyas. If you're Shafi, you would do the same according to your imam. But the scholars, like Mujtahid imams, the scholars who are really at the top level, they are not bound. They can decide what they think, because they may have different, because they can do their own ijtihad and they may have a different illah and different reasoning. So they're allowed to do that. Okay, inshallah ta'ala. So that makes it hopefully clear to you. Jazakallahu khairah. So Abdullah ibn Umar, from 610 to 693, so about 82, 83 years. Jazakallahu khairah. That makes much more valid point. Yeah, Jazakallah. Okay, so inshallah ta'ala, with that being said, I hope it is clear to you what qiyas is, and then we see how when you maybe you could do a small test now, and I will give you a quick quiz, possibly next week or the week after. Okay, jazakallahu khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.